located within the Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians and the Modoc Nation, as well as the Chesta, Tekelma, and Lagawa people, whose descendants are now identified as members of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians and the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. We take this moment to recognize the indigenous people whose traditional lands are where residents of Jackson County live today. JCLS is committed to fostering understanding, deep respect, and honor for indigenous people, and we encourage you to learn more about the land you reside on. For more information, go to jcls.org/land. All right. Roll call, please.
Susan Keeper,
Here.
Kevin Keating. Absolutely. Oh, we're walking in.
Walking in.
Walking in.
Whoa, thread the needle on that one.
I'll let him capture spread. Marta present. Patty Jensen.
Present.
Melissa Shepherd. And Kevin Keating.
Here.
So, on the agenda for today, the first item is to discuss the interim director process and potential candidates. I thought we might want to talk about the agenda because I invited some of the admin team to join us today to sort of talk about one of the things that we have to do before part of the interim director process is we need a job description of some sort. And I thought that the admin staff ought to have a little input in what that job description ought to be. But I guess that would fall within that item on the agenda anyway. I also sent out a report about what I've been working on, and I have a graph from Patty on what she's been working on. But let's start with this discussion item and start working on what we think ought to go in, what we want this person who's going to be interim director to do. And as far as I'm concerned, you folks can just speak up. Go ahead.
I took some notes on what I think will be key for the rapport and the reporting relationship between the board and the interim director. So I took some notes on framing how we should, and I'll list some things to get the conversation started with your permission. I see the interim position serving the district and reporting to the board over a time frame of 4 to 6 months, as that could position us for the development of the 12 to 18-month strategic roadmap. As the eventually permanent director will have a say in participate in the scoping of the full next 5-year strategic plan. I would expect them to take off the burden of the admin staff that has been stepping in every day relentlessly in overseeing the implementation of the findings and recommendations of both investigations and assist the administrative staff, because those are tasks that are not necessarily the current admin staff's position descriptions and regular duties. Identify possibly paths to transparency and, again, further implementing findings of the second investigation.
When you say that's guaranteed. say more about what that means?
Um. A permanent director, if there were an investigation, I would expect them to be the voice in setting the direction upon implementation of any investigations findings. So I would expect the interim director to be that in the short term,
Implementing the findings of the investigation.
or starting to, or some things may take longer, some things could be a change to a policy and adoption and training of everybody, but some things could have a longer timeline. I would want them to take on supporting the board in recruiting the permanent director. And I took some notes on what kind of devices, they can bring in if IT so allows for cybersecurity. I would want it to be a contractual relationship, report to the board at monthly meetings with an interim written report every 2 weeks. Unless we want a meeting every 2 weeks. The study sessions, and take on also being the person between the finance department and the board when we're approaching the budget process in the way that the permanent director usually is. So those are key things that I see as successful.
Very excellent. Thank you for pulling that together.
Just a couple of things I want to mention as well. Being strong in terms of having experience on a budget. And then I still don't have a real good handle on what the our obligations are for the next 12 to 18 months. So it would have to be someone I would think has some experience, or at least has confidence that they can do that well. Anything else?
You wanna flesh that out a little more?
Okay, so I don't know any of the deadlines, for instance, that we're subject to. We haven't really gotten a solid report on what we as a board have to do next, or who we have to appoint to negotiate in any kind of dealings with the union, what we can and can't do. So I was experiencing that type of thing.
Okay, we're getting a report on the unionization stuff at our March board meeting, so once March board
Assuming
meeting
no
comes,
deadlines
we should be
coming.
in better shape, about the union stuff.
Just seems like a pretty big deal
Mhm.
that we would need to make sure that we have a good handle.
Contribution from the gallery.
Well, one of the things that we were just thinking about is effectively Carrie had authority to do things and direct work. And in our current state of limbo, there is no one with the authority to approve certain things or sign off on certain things. And so that, I think, is the biggest hindrance to operations, is if, we don't have, if you haven't granted us that authority, we're a little stuck with certain things.
Well, I mean, some of that was because nobody wanted to be an acting director, so they didn't get that sort of authority. But I assume that it seems to me, I keep hearing that this would probably be an independent contractor sort of thing. So we would define the authority in the contract. I'm guessing, or at least I assume that that's what would happen. And my personal vision would be to have, since it's not entirely clear to me that this person will necessarily have library expertise. It's possible that they might have administrative expertise. It might be that they have district expertise, which would not be at all a bad thing, since I think having expertise about how districts work is probably important, and we don't want to not consider that. But I would assume that the administrative staff team would have an awful lot to do with the day-to-day operations of the library, and that the interim director would consult about that, but, and that we need to have good communication and transparency back and forth between the parties, but that, I assume that the interim director would have the authorities you're talking about.
I have a question. Is it authority that, more authority that each of you are seeking through then maybe running it past Susan or something? And is that even appropriate? I don't know. I'm just asking.
I don't have authority to run the library.
Okay,
Right.
The board's power is defined by statute, and it has to do with policy supervising the director.
well,
And
okay, and I apologize.
Yeah.
to interrupt you. What I meant was that, you had mentioned at the foundation meeting that you didn't have anyone that you were reporting to, but I would think just like Haley reported to Susan, then you report to Susan? That's what I meant by running it through. No?
We have not set it up as such
that's not,
currently.
no,
Okay.
it's, and I'm not sure that would be legal, exactly.
Okay.
That's not the authority that district boards have. So, I mean, I see the way we're currently operating as a very temporary
Right.
thing, as with the goal being to get somebody who does have the right authorities.
Trying to
place.
ease the, trying to address the concerns the best that we can now. But I hear what you're
But-
saying.
Well, right now, I think we need to, I want to work on figuring out what we want out of this interim person so that we can then find one,
Okay.
and then we don't have to fuss with running things through board members, because I don't think that's the way things are intended to work with special districts.
Are they empowered though to each of them take on the responsibility that they, of decision making that they used to have, or no?
I think, I mean, that's what I've been assuming, is that we all have certain authorities.
Something
Yeah, current, but then there are certain things. One thing that came up was like, if there's a new contract or something like that, that, typically, you know, sometimes Carrie would sign those contracts, sometimes they would be brought to the board, sometimes Carrie had the authority to sign those contracts, and at this point.
So is Jackie working with you on those?
Well,
Well, she would
Jacqueline will
be a part of any.
be part of
Okay.
how we move forward, but I mean, getting somebody who knows how districts work, I think would be really helpful. Yes, Kevin.
So when we made the motion in that meeting a few weeks ago, my intention was that you would be the person in charge, acting as director. So anything would go through you first. If it were a contract and it could be pushed off, that's one thing, but if there's something needs to be done, there's a way of getting it done. Either the entire board has to agree with it, or you would have, I assumed you would have the same authority as Carrie Payne. So I don't know,
Well,
that's what I intended in the motion I made. And I
Well,
think that's what we agreed to, and Jackie said that you could report through to the president of the board. And if it required full board participation, we'd do it. That's how I kind of understood it.
well, but my understanding is different from that, because you talked initially about making Kelda acting director. And Kelda said very clearly, I do not want to be acting director. Well, that's what you said.
I told you that,
Well,
that's not what I said in the meeting, but yeah.
well, it was sort of similar though.
Well, what I said, so my recollection was that Kevin said, hey, this, you said, we're not talking about assistant director right now, we're trying to get this motion through. Then, okay, well then we need somebody in charge, and then Marta said, oh, I think they should handle it like Carrie's on vacation. And then it came back and it's held in the room, I'm in the room and virtual, and I explained how we handle things on vacation, and then it was, no, I think we need to have a single person in charge, and Kevin said, okay, Kelvin, I vote to Kelvin be the person in charge. Martha said, has anyone talked to Kelvin about this? And then I was voted, and then I was voted in charge.
Well, and Jacqueline, I think, is not clear about, she doesn't think that whatever we did was clear enough about the authorities.
I would agree.
So perhaps what we should do at the board meeting coming up is to have a motion that we run by Jacqueline to provide the required authority, at least until we get through this.
I think getting clarity on what was meant by that, I think would be helpful.
All right.
And are you comfortable?
Well, I think it depends on what you're thinking.
Perhaps you better be.
Is it appropriate to ask you to give us what you would be, what kind of authority you'd be comfortable with that Carrie used to have? Is that
Well,
fair to ask?
Or not, whatever. Well, Marta,
Yes,
Sorry.
I would really like us to focus on what we want the interim to have the authority to do. And then if there are any gaps identified, that's when we can have that. Hey, all hands on deck, who may step in for this conversation. I'd like to start with the interim director's authority description.
well, that's fine, but I think what held us, I think what we were talking about just now is how we get through from right now to when we have an interim director who's got this sort of authority. But maybe what we should do is put this on hold and we'll work on coming back with a motion at our next board meeting.
Which is next week.
Yeah,
So
I know.
No, but I mean, that's because each day that goes by, I really am, I don't know that I can totally understand, but I think perhaps I do, that this is a difficult, challenging time on many levels and not even knowing what, anyway, enough said. But yeah, let's move up. We could do these in parallel paths. We can work on the interim director and work on clarifying your role. Yes.
The current transitional.
Yes, I think that the transition to the transition.
Exactly.
All right,
Exactly.
let's go back to the
Okay, good.
position description and then we'll.
So the actual threshold perhaps to be written in later, but the interim director, we would seek them to execute contracts that would typically be within the scope of the executive director, library director. So contracts. I know we have a policy committee, and so I think, so serve on all of the committees on which the library director served and basically liaise there by serving there.
I have not done the research on this, but I'm guessing there must be 100 templates out there that we could start and then we can customize to what our needs are.
Well, I'll get to you in a second. I talked to, in my little report that I sent out,
I have it here.
which you may not have had a chance to read, but,
Yeah, that's right there.
I talked to Jennifer Patterson of Genuine Consulting, and one of the things that we were just talking about the kinds of stuff she does and what the position that we're in and what we might need. And she said, well, one of the things I could help you with perhaps is taking as you work on a position description, she could help us put it into a form that would then be usable to recruit somebody, maybe.
And so can RVCOG, because they can support us with such a template.
Well, and RVCOG wouldn't even charge it. I mean, her rates were pretty reasonable compared to many other rates I've seen, but RV5s would probably even be better.
Can someone explain how we expect this to be different from the current position? Description of, full-time director, other than the fact that this person will be gone about 18 months at the most? Do we need to really reinvent the wheel and get all this stuff in motion when we already have a perfectly good description, I think?
Well, I think, well, you can start a lot.
Thank you. I think the position description for the library director and the job description, it really relies on the permanent reporting and annual evaluations and very, very comprehensive duties. And it really reflects library director competencies, whereas right now we may be seeking district leadership competencies. So to me, there's going to be a difference. I feel like the library director position is significantly more comprehensive for great reasons. The interim gets us to a position and to a place where we can recruit for a permanent. So I think the full library director position description would be too all-encompassing and burdensome for this particular search for an interim.
That's my sense. That I see the results of these investigations that we've got going on as perhaps coming up with that there may be quite a list of things to do as a result of these investigations that might involve policy, they might involve staff training, they might involve a variety of things and I think, since we've had a variety of allegations of stuff about HR, and I just think we need to get our internal processes. We have to see if they're up to snuff. If they're not up to snuff, we need to get them up to snuff. I think that will entail looking at policy. I think it'll entail looking at personnel. I don't think we know exactly what's coming, but I think it would be a distraction for whoever's library director. So my personal view is that the admin team will mostly keep the library running and that this interim person will work on rebuilding whatever public relations we need to rebuild, which I assume is not insignificant. And there's a lot of internal stuff that needs to be rebuilt too, and I think those will be pretty big things for whoever is in the interim spot to work on. And so that, I don't know, I may be altogether wrong, but I think that's what I've been kind of thinking about.
I'm assuming we will miss something and something will be missing from the interim position description. But should that happen, a scenario that I envision is the interim director, a strong administrator, has a discussion with the admin team that is relying on them to do something a library director would otherwise do, and they use their best judgment, administrative experience, district leadership experience. And if they need authority to resolve whatever needs to be resolved, they come to the board. But whatever the admin staff comes to them with gets resolved in a way that a director would otherwise. We're looking for a strong administrator. The things that I've listed, that's the theme behind the things that I've listed.
Well, and somebody who has budget skills who can work with Heather and coming up.
I was just going to add to the list, somebody that would review monthly financial reports before they go to the finance committee.
Thank you.
That's a good one.
So I'm gathering we don't need to add much to the existing. position description, other than perhaps union negotiation. There's skills in that, but there's plenty to take off, but we don't really need to take anything off. The reason I'm talking about this is I don't think we need to spend a ton of time going over the position description and, weeks of consultants and all this kind of things. Use the one we have, add in a couple of things, just, emphasis points perhaps,
Or subtract.
or subtract, sure. But
I can work with subtract.
yeah, it's not a lot of, I don't want to waste a lot of time doing it because we really need one soon.
Other comments?
I just want to say, I think it might be for a person who fills this position or this interim role to have some knowledge of what it is to be an urban like library like Bedford or experience with some amount of security incidents or issues. So it's not shocked. That's
Okay.
Manage expectations on how urban libraries exist in this country. Thank you.
What about the foundation and the libraries? Do you have any things you think we need the interim person to be doing that wouldn't just spring to mind?
Well, I think the relationship continues to be important and one that I would hope they could assist with the MOU and maintaining the efforts around that. And in an interim fashion, I think ideally stepping in ways where they can assist with major donors.
Right, well, I mean, the foundation's been doing really good stuff lately, and it would be really tragic to lose all the momentum that's been building. So, but I don't know what keeping the momentum going would necessarily look like with an interim person, but sort of managing the relationship with the foundation would certainly be an item.
I would expect that they would continue to meet with supervise as they have done prior to now, those kinds of things. And I think that, I'm also trying to manage expectations as I'm listening to you as you're having to let go of something. I think the day to day, I can run the foundation. I don't need a director to assist with running the foundation. I just need them to be alongside me, making sure that the relationship is strong and making sure that we're on the same path with whatever the strategic roadmap is. We're talking, in concert when we're speaking to a donor or whatever. Just continuing the relationship and the conversation so that we're on the same page largely. And making sure that the MOU is continuing to hit the benchmarks on both our sides.
And just to say too, I mean, we're pretty lucky. This is an amazing group of people. So, I mean, I think that each of us knows our jobs and do them very well. So, in terms of needs, there's not a lot, but I think just want to be able to keep doing our jobs. And so that's where we're coming up on.
That's how we were operating day to day. Harry wasn't doing the day to day stuff that we're doing. That's why we're here. So that stuff continued without that. That's
It's very common.
So Kelda, have you run into, are you feeling like you're above water? I mean, is there anything that's rising that we should really we need someone? This is something that really wasn't expected.
There's no, I don't know what anyone's expectations are.
You don't know your authorities,
I don't know
that's
what
what we need to
authority I
clear up.
have. I don't know what I don't have. I don't know what your expectations are. I don't know,
That's our job.
Yeah,
Right. And we should do that in this meeting.
But I think that again, that's why we're working so closely together, because we're all in it together, figure it all out, right? And
It also seems like that's working pretty well, and it appears to me that you guys are finding strength as in the team that you maybe didn't even know was there before. Yes.
Just want to caution the board, all of us, that working well at a time of great need and coming together, that's awesome. We also need to make sure it's sustainable for everybody involved. That's the thing. Every single person. It also needs to be sustainable for the interim, right? That's part of why I'm in favor of redacting some of the job description aspects that are not core to getting us through the next transition period. It has to be sustainable for everybody involved, especially the employees. I've been part of a team where folks needed to step up, and we did, but the sustainability was an issue.
Well, right, well, hopefully, and I don't know where in this process you start the search for the permanent director. I assume it's not right away, but hopefully it's not too far down the road either.
Without having a time frame, I would expect the interim director to come in, clear and clarify the authorities, put out the fires, such as the bottlenecks that the admin team may have run into in the absence of the clarity right now, and then start positioning us to recruit for a permanent position 90 days into the stint. 1 month to clear up fires, 30 days to orient more about what's needed. We already have the position description in place. We're members of several library and district trade associations. We already know which channels we may be able to post it on. We're paying members of those groups. We're not starting from zero on that part. The interim director, we are starting right now, it feels like, from zero. That step, I expect them to be positioning us for that without starting from zero themselves.
Other contributions on this description?
Somebody who's a good communicator, they should.
Oh,
be
absolutely.
Notifying you all what you need to know, but not so much the word us, so, but appropriate.
Do we want to recap what we've already got? Yoli, I don't know if you're taking the notes, right?
It's recording.
Take some notes, but then I'll go back and do my minutes.
Maybe we should reiterate that. Just kind of agree on.
So looking at 4 to 6 months, hopefully, I think that's someone to deal with the results of the investigations.
Time out for a sec. Just, you said 4 to 6 months, but we said we weren't going to look for a new director till what, 3 months out?
I said start positioning us for that within 90 days to start getting the description out, description shaped.
Fair enough.
Description out.
I mean, it's possible that we might do an initial, put some time flexibility in the period of the contract. I don't know if that's how I would want to consult with legal about that, obviously, but go ahead.
I think that, if I may be frank, I think the desirability of this position, I think a little distance is probably good to plan on, because
I'm not following.
There,
What do you
this library system is a Google away from whoa. Well, so I feel like in terms of attracting quality candidates for the director role, I think getting some distance from recent events.
Stabilizing. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think we want us to approach the permanent director search from a place of strength, clarity, stability, success, continuing to build on the successes of the relationships.
And time out, that's my professional opinion, is to wait 6 to 9 months before we start recruiting.
I think give it a year, just on the outside.
Well, I've talked to a number of people out there in the big world, and what I've been hearing, which was sort of surprising, was that the people I talked to didn't think it would necessarily be as bad as we think it might be. So I don't know what that, I think we have to get into this process and see how it feels. And I would like to leave at least enough flexibility to try to build some flexibility into this so that we aren't just cast in concrete when we don't really know how it's all gonna play out.
Can we say 6 to 12 months, just because if you're looking for an interim director, I think 4 to 6 might be a little bit too short a period of time.
Well,
Or
it's
really good
too
interim.
long.
So we've spent like a few minutes on this, we took notes. I think we actually have a lot of really good approaches in the room. That's where between the consultant you mentioned and RVCOG, they can help us, they've been recruiting for positions like that, and they're in that world.
They
So
might even be able to help with the
a
time,
range,
right.
yeah, we're looking at a range. I think we all agree that we're looking at a range. We're not
Alright.
looking at a concrete date.
Right.
And I'm amenable to the 6+. I started out at 4 to 6, but I'm amenable. Uh,
4, 6, 8, 12.
range. Moving forward, we have some notes in the minutes. I can send Yoli the list of the interim director.
That you started.
Yes, reporting to the board on the budget preparation process and reviewing the monthly financial statements before they're brought to the board, participating actively and being present for the continued relationship building, serving on the committees that the director serves on a contract basis.
Liaison with the foundation.
That's very interesting.
Okay.
Oversee the implementation of the findings and recommendations of investigations in the short and intermediate term. Communicate well, transparently. Being able to assess what the board needs to be communicated without going outside of the scope. Step in and assume authority over what the permanent director had authority over, while delegating in a way that still allows the amazing administrative team to keep doing their day-to-day job. Support the board in recruiting the permanent director.
Yep.
Support the board and the district through the unionization contract negotiation process that is before us.
Side note about supporting the current recruitment, what if we have an interim who's interested in applying for the position? They shouldn't have anything to do with recruitment.
Thank you.
It's
Position us for successful recruitment. Because or get us to the point where we can recruit, but I hear you. Distance, right? We're talking about
looking at the wording too.
That's kind of we end up with, because at least one person would, I think, be interested in a long-term job, but I also think that we don't know yet what we're gonna get here.
foundation. Oversee the progress towards milestones with the MOU with the foundation. And the setting us on a successful path for the 12 to 18-month strategic roadmap that will set us up for the next 5-year plan that the permanent director will have an active role in developing alongside everybody. Not a bad list.
It's good enough.
Marta has to go. So go.
Oh, this is, we cannot vote on it, so you don't need.
We're not gonna.
Mhm.
The,
So that's a pretty good list.
Stands on 445.
Oh, I have something to throw in. I mean, what if we find someone who would be a good candidate for a permanent position? Now, let's just step back for a second and think, do we need an interim director if we could find someone relatively quickly who could step in immediately to a permanent position?
well,
Just
one
discussion.
of the, one of the questions that I would have about that would be, we don't know what's coming in terms of the results of investigations, and some of it might. I've been thinking that if some of it is difficult psychically for the group that's here, that it might be better to have somebody, if you're gonna have somebody do stuff that people might not like, then it might be better to have somebody who's here for a while that can do the hard stuff and then have a permanent director come in without having to deal with that. I mean, I think, well, I mean, I don't know what's coming, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's some things coming out of some of these investigations that might be kind of difficult to deal with.
I agree with what you're saying. Another way to look at it, perhaps, Kevin, is that if a person, it has a desire perhaps to, be a more permanent position, serving as interim director is a good way to find out if they're a right fit or not.
It is, I wouldn't say no, but
That's what I'm saying. I mean, but even if they serve 90, 120 days or something as interim and find out, and they may not feel that this is the right fit for them either.
Thank you. Actually, you go ahead.
I just wanted to say I am for not to settle. This library deserves very best.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
I have no intentions of settling.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah, I didn't imply that at all.
Okay, that feels, yeah, no, I.
No, but if there was a fully qualified, according to everything we had, director, it would. Let me just throw this out there.
You want to keep your options open.
Well, not only that, but if we found someone who we said, okay, you're a director, we hire them, and after a year, we don't, we think we'd like to move in a different direction, we could still do that. It would be a tremendous savings in terms of having to get another, the whole group has to adapt to yet another person a year down the road. We may get someone who's very well qualified. Go ahead.
I'm gonna go back to, we have to recruit for the permanent position from a place of stability, strength, having, I think we're going to also get additional input as we go through the implementation of the investigations, and a strong administrator in interim position could also have a fantastic input if they're not pursuing the position. And if they're interested, fantastic. I would like to work with them at an interim basis in the intermediate term. I've served on multiple boards where executive director searches were performed, not in a district format, but we're discussing authorities in this meeting. I don't believe we will be in a position to, we may find the most qualified person. We are not in a position to enter into a permanent director contract yet.
As a government employer, I encourage all of you to do a full competitive process. These are taxpayer dollars. It's the right thing to do. And we want to make sure we get the best of the best.
Right. And I don't think we're gonna have the ability to do a full competitive process for interim, but we do need to do that for permanent.
Yeah.
Is there a length of time we have to wait, in other words, to post the position before we decide on something? If it were permanent?
No. No, there's no law or anything, if that's what you're asking. That would be a decision that you guys would make.
They're just worried that storm that's sitting over top Jackson County Library Services right now might affect the interest of people who would be otherwise perhaps qualified to be library, right?
Correct.
I got that.
And
part.
also, as I mentioned to Susan, colleagues that I've spoken to in other libraries, I've got Lee and Joan, with Joan as well, recommended there are different, consultants that specialize in recruitment of library directors. And that seems like getting that support, if that is what is the way it goes. It just seems like that would help lend a certain, I don't know. Well, but who specialize in public
Yeah.
library?
Yes.
Getting that expertise in recruiting. I feel like that would also reflect well on the library to utilize one of those reputable.
I think that staff trust that process.
Oh, yeah, I think we would do that. But. All right, so. The other thing we need to do is get statements out, and
Yes, I just want to know, unless it's a critical change, this has been reviewed by several people, including our attorney. And I would like to, unless it's like a grammatical error or a factual error, I'm asking the board to, agree to publish.
Express
Agree to
consensus.
publish.
Vote on it. I will only submit a couple of written things to you after discuss it, not to overdo it, but
Yeah.
I'm in support of this too. Thank you for your work on this.
And thank you, this is, really take the thing. And I can go home, I can do it right before we leave. And then we would, is it okay to, Hilda, to go through you to ask Josh? What this is, you guys, is this, and I'm happy to share it with all of you now. It is a, quite as many copies as it, but, this is a letter that, I want you to hang on there. I'm multitasking. This is a letter to all of you, from the board. And it's critical, we should have gotten this out earlier. However, we didn't know exactly what was gonna happen, till later last week. But I can assure all of you that this is from the heart. What we're saying here. Thank you. We get it. We get what you're going through. We can't possibly totally understand because we're not the ones that work here. But certainly we do understand how hard, how difficult this is and how hard you are working to continue to deliver the services that are so important to the communities we serve. And this is a letter of respect and thanks and admiration to all of you.
I think we were supposed to come up with a salary range as well.
Contract reimbursement, contract compensation rates, salaries.
Do we need to discuss that now, or that's something we can discuss later?
So.
About
See me for the budget, I need to have that, I need to have that resolution for the board meeting next week. And so this would, so yes, we do need to have a range. We also could do a separate resolution later on once you. The person, so that might be
might have.
Okay.
Are we we're reserving money from our contingency fund to go into what fund?
So it's the general fund that would,
Okay.
where the expenses for additional legal and terminating. And so, yeah, we're just moving it. So right now, just for this, we don't know what it's gonna be for, but it's already approved. So we need to move it to.
So we're talking any payouts from the termination, we're talking consultants.
So the resolution,
Salary range for the new incoming interim?
well, we should probably do the salary range for the incoming interim separately.
Courtesy for the folks online. Patty, can you please rejoin us for a second?
Yes,
It's really
I'm
important for the microphone to pick up the speaker. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
And my thought was everything that's related to this termination situation, which would be additional legal costs, the termination costs is additional severance and pay. And then I'd also like to include professional development costs for you. The board budget was only $2,500 and it sounds like we've already extinguished that. Not considering this recent side trip, which I haven't got the expenses for, so it'd be good to get that approved. So Seaside, potential OLA, and then the DC trip that Marks is planning on going on. So what we do is move a chunk over and then we don't have to spend it all, but at least then we're covered, not going over budget for those expenses. So I had requested from Susan some estimates on legal and we met with Jackie today. Right now, the total of all of those is ranging at about $80,000. That includes the HR answers, Amy Arendt, I say that Arendt, the HR investigation, and then Jackie's fees that will potentially be used for the rest of the fiscal year. It includes the additional amount above what we would have paid Carrie throughout the year, COBRA vacation payout, and the potential unemployment costs that came through. And that total is going to be, well, I'll round it up to 130. And then I don't have a number for the professional development yet, but I would suggest maybe 10-ish.
So we're looking like 200.
Yeah, I think it's about 210 or so if we do something. So it's or no, that's all right. 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, 220. It's about that total. So, but it would be in the resolution, and I just want to get that number in front of you before I write it so that we don't have to adjust it.
I think you should bring it.
Yeah.
It seemed like the termination cost would have been higher than 130. Is that what you can?
So it's because we already have budgeted as if we were paying
Oh, I
Carrie
see, I
throughout
understand.
through June. So it's a 4.5 months additional pay.
Gotcha.
But then and I apologize, that was inappropriate.
Well, no, I stepped in when you were.
So does this include what in addition to what we would have been paying Carrie, then we're gonna be paying someone else?
We haven't got.
No, we
that
haven't,
yet. We're gonna do that
Be separate.
later.
Oh,
We-
gotcha.
We don't have an
I
estimate.
apologize.
No, it's okay. We don't have an estimate for that yet, and it's better to have something solid to base it off of, so.
Something closer
Yeah.
than.
So we can do, so just so you know, we'll have this resolution. I anticipate having another one probably at the next board meeting, once Bryn has some estimates for negotiations for the union. And then we can also have one, for that, determine what the return will cost. We have 500 total, taking 220 now. We have 280 left to be able to move, and that's without amending the budget. So that's what's nice about having the contingency in place. And we will definitely have contingency in next year's budget as the union stuff and if.
Certainly.
We'll need one.
So back to the question that Kevin brought up about, do you want us to give you target ranges of compensation for the contractor for the interim right now?
We can do that separately. I don't need to have that, right?
We ought to get some sort of more of an idea and then do it, but
I guess I'm putting
if
this
you're
out.
willing to wait a little bit on that one, I think waiting makes some sense.
I think we can wait. What's important is that you know that 220 number is what's there. So the 280 is what's left. So that
Thank you.
with union negotiation, we don't have any estimates yet, but I would think another. Okay, we don't know yet.
We'll ask them.
Sure. But just keep in mind when you're that goal, so you have that.
Thank you.
Right, I'll have that for you.
You have something else?
Okay. As you know, so I was there and so was Marissa when we interviewed the candidates and then the two that were chosen. And so I'm feeling very, like, eek, am I supposed to be contacting them? Do they know when we're gonna have our first meeting?
The budget
You got that?
So I just sent an email to the new candidates to give them the dates and to set the reminder, and then they're.
I just wanna make sure someone's been in touch with them because I didn't ever get their contact information or anything, so. Yay, thank you.
And we're supposed to have, be noticing committee meetings now, and just, I think that's for you, or any committee meetings where at least two of us are there need to be noticed apparently, according to the Sentinel training.
Kevin and I approached one of the folks providing district-specific public meetings related training at the Special District Association of Oregon. And Kevin had a great question. And that is, if there is a committee where board business or things that will become board business are discussed, and the committee ends up making a recommendation to the board directors are on that committee, those meetings could fall under proper noticing as a public meeting. I think we still need to follow up with that particular trainer / expert.
Yeah.
So that's a conversation that happened, so please be aware of that. We will follow up with that speaker for legal advice.
Yeah, I'd want to get more clarification on that before I started noticing all our.
They were adamant, but yeah, we should
Well,
get it in writing or something.
In writing is good. Thank you, everybody. I must go for a work commitment. I appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
I appreciate your. Thank you,
I'll make these edits.
Did you see the thing at the I sent? See you later.
It was supposed to be, guys,
You didn't read
was
my
supposed to be me.
email, correct you?
What?
you were supposed to be here. We were down to it. No, sir.
You didn't read it. Sorry. We'll figure it
I
out.
read it twice. All right.
Well,
You must have sent me a different one.
okay. Other things?
I think from you guys.
Are you done? Shall we adjourn? Recording stuff.
Thanks.
Want to gavel us out?
Work session is now adjourned.